Well, guys, it's been a while since I've given any updates on the T595. So this is my 1998 Triumph Daytona. It's a T595. That's really more the chassis designation. The engine is a 955cc triple. Now, this bike is as analog as it gets. I mean, aside from having fuel injection, here's your gauge cluster. You get a tach, a speedo, a temperature gauge, and some lights to let you know if anything's going wrong. Doesn't even have a fuel gauge, just a fuel light. Now, as far as what all's been done to this bike, well, it's got a Triumph off-road high mount can. The rest of it's all factory. The tune is a Triumph off-road tune to go along with the can. Now, when I first got this bike back, it was my dad's, and I had to do a lot of work to get this thing back on the road. But surprisingly, it was a lot of work, but it was just a bunch of little fiddly things. And, well, the bike will pretty much fire right up. If you could hear the fuel pump humming. Let's get it fired up. She can be a little pissy when you first fire her up cold, but once she gets warmed up, she's fine. Yes, I saw the check engine light. That light will kick on if you try to start the bike 2 or 3 times and it doesn't kick off immediately. It'll throw the check engine light. There's nothing wrong with the bike. It'll throw a code like, it could be anything. It could be starter relay code. It could be a coil pack code. There's nothing wrong. The bike runs great. So sometimes that light just goes away, but I do have software to turn that check engine light off if it just fails to turn off. But one thing I wanted to talk about with bikes like this, it's a great bike, love riding it, but man, owning a vintage motorcycle, certainly not for the faint of heart. If you're watching this bike and you want a little bit more specific detail of what I'm talking about when I say that, let me just zoom in right quick here. This bolt goes into the gas tank, but where it goes into the gas tank is wide open. It is exposed to fuel and it can leak there. I've tried fixing that with epoxy inside the tank with very limited success, unfortunately. So now, and I figured this out, something that my dad did when he had it. Apparently it's been leaking for probably the better part of a dozen years. Just take a little RTV, put it on the bolt itself as though you were putting thread locker on it, and screw it in and just get it snug. Obviously it doesn't have to be tight, it's just holding bodywork on there, and it seals it up great. So just do that and you'll be fine. The rest of this bike has been just basically maintenance items. Bad old crusty rubber hoses, things like that being replaced. And of course the fuel pump, the fuel filter, all of that had to be replaced on the bike, but it fires right up and it runs great. Probably need to put a clutch in it. But aside from that, it's doing awesome. And one of the things about this bike that I really enjoy is the character of that 955cc triple. Lots of mid-range torque and decent horsepower too. I mean, it's 130 horsepower. A lot of folks say that's ideal for the street. Look, it makes appropriate power for a motorcycle that looks like that. I promise you, it's nice and sporty, and the power delivery is linear, but it is very immediate. You twist the throttle and this thing is trying to put all the power it possibly can down to the rear tire, which makes it extremely fun and extremely punchy in town and out in the country. Speaking of a little country riding, this thing is rocking the Rosso 3s. These have been really good tires for this bike. I don't really hammer on it that hard. As you can see, I'm getting it over on the side of the tire okay, but I'm typically not bonsai blasting into sweepers or anything like that. I'll trail into sweepers and then power out of them. This bike is extremely stable, and again, that's where it's the most fun. Just enjoying that mid-range triple grunt. That's what's so fun about this bike. And with every accolade that I give this bike, well, there's some motorcycles that are being released soon with the Yamaha R9 and the KTM RCR that are going to be more or less a modern interpretation of this exact motorcycle. So I'm very excited about that, and it's just really neat to see bikes like this in that 120, 130 horsepower range, but still larger displacement, lots of torque, lots of immediate throttle response. I think that once folks start getting their hands on bikes like this again, they're going to remember why they were so great back in the day. And I'm looking forward to getting a leg over on those machines. But you know what the cool thing is? I can ride this one whenever I want to. And I just did not that long ago. I took it out earlier this week, had a lot of fun with it. And it just reminds me just how great these older bikes can be. Provided that you don't mind putting in the work, they're incredibly rewarding. And with that, guys, post up your comments. If you've got one of these old motorcycles, let me know how it's working out for you, and we'll catch you on the next one.